Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to BodyBags. It's week 224, and I'm your Sunday host, Bourgie86, here again. And yes, guys, it's that time for the Sunday review. So the film I'm doing today is kind of special for me because, if you know, Friday was actually the anniversary of director Jean Rollin's passing, and it was very interesting enough, to say the least, that I actually just guest starred on a podcast with the 22 Shots of Moods and Horror. Of course, you know, Moods and JP, who are the co-founders of this channel. And we had a very interesting discussion about this director's work. So, for fitting and as a paid tribute to Jean Rollin, I wanted to do like a little review for today of a film that I don't hear a lot about, like review-wise. And this one, of course, is his feature-length directorial debut, and it's from 1968, and it goes by the title of Rape of the Vampire. Yes. This film's very interesting, I have to say. Pretty much the main plot of this one, we're introduced to this group of four sisters who lead to believe that they're vampires, and it's up to like the psychiatrist who's studying these girls to try to find out like they were misguided from the townspeople that were making them sound like vampires, and they actually believed it pretty much. So it's that interactions going on, and then all of a sudden like things start to happen and they all end up dead. That's like what ends up happening. But we find out like that there is this secret society of vampires, and the town was actually in on it with the queen of the vampires, who's that lovely lady in the middle right there, played by Jacqueline Siegler, who had like other things to do with like this family, and they were like studying them to become like vampires, I believe, from the gist of the plot of this one. So it ends up becoming like a two-part film, and then it goes way crazy outlandish out of that. So yeah, it's pretty much the gist of the plot. It's like the film's like interesting thing about this film, without going too crazy into it. As I read through like the history of this movie, the script was actually thrown out on the second day of shooting, and pretty much all the actors like improvised their lines, which and improvise like the scenery and like the scenes as they go along. Pretty much that's what Jean Rollin did with this one. So it's all from improvisation, and it's noticeable in some aspects with that. And another thing, like this film is actually in two parts. The first part is like the first 35 minutes of the film, where the girls are being studied by the psychiatrist, and then the townspeople revolt against them. That's pretty much the first plot part of the film. Then the rest of the film is very like not coherent with the aspect of like the mystery of what's going on, because they're actually like bringing these characters that we see die in the first half of the film back to life, and it's kind of confusing in some of the aspects of it, because you see all these characters die in the first half of this movie. So it's very interesting in that aspect how Jean Rollin made this film, but it also brings into like the art house like scenario of this film, where you're just intrigued with what's going on in the scenes and the mystery, and the characters are very odd. Like the Queen Vampire is probably the standout like part of the second half of this movie, because the facial expressions that she makes just put a smile on my face. It's very cheesy, but elegant at the same time, the way the scenes are shot. So with that aspect of it, and there's a lot of things that you see in this film that you would go on to see in like later day, like Jean Rollin, like vampire films, and his other films in general, including like of course like the famous like beach setting that he uses in most of his films, with like the beach on in Normandy that he uses in a lot of his films. You know, the famous beach with like the piers, pieces of wood sticking out of it. He uses that beach in numerous of his movies, and it's noticeable in this one because it's pretty much like the main setting of the movie. It's very set heavy in this one. They use it for like a lot of like scenes in this one, so it's very elegant, and he actually used that setting in a short film that's actually on this release from Redemption 2 called The Yellow Lovers, which was a very interesting short. I did watch it. It's pretty much about like it's kind of like a romantic short. It's nothing really horror based, but it's just a great like place to set a movie. Pretty much this have settings on it because of like the way the beach looks and stuff. It's a very upscale looking set, so that was really cool to see it in this one in black and white, because this is his black and white film, which the rest of his films then went on to color. So a lot of aspects of like his filmmaking style, as you can see in this film, and it's very atmospheric. And another thing that I noticed about this one, because we were actually talking about this like on the last show, like he doesn't, like in his other later day films, he doesn't use like a ton of like music or score, but this one actually has a score throughout it. It was very weird. It has like this like jazzy like feel to it, and it has like a very like bass heavy on some things, of like a jazzy bass like type score. So it was very interesting after we talked about like him not using a lot of music in his movies, and then I revisit this one and I just noticed a lot of music in it. So it was very odd in that aspect. But yeah, I do like this film. Like I said, it gets kind of like incoherent in the second half of it because of like all the things that's going on within it. But it's still like a fun little mysterious, weird like art house like cinema film. It has like that art house vibe that I think a lot of like newer day art house people will appreciate, the aspect of him making these type of movies and stuff. And it's like you said, like he takes like things from this movie and puts them all into his other films, like, including like his other vampire films, of course, but most notably like his other like filmography. And some very like, for like a 1968 black and white film in France, a lot of nudity, which is okay for like this type of era of like French cinema. They were a little more, persuaded in that aspect of the filmmaking, where it was like their art form to like do like the elegance of like nudity in films. But it was very odd to see it because I've never seen like an older film like this with like that amount of nudity before. So it was very interesting in that aspect, but it wasn't like shot like sleazy or anything. It was very shot elegantly, like a lot of Jean Rollin stuff is. So that's what all I got to really say about this one. Without giving too much away, I don't want to really spoil the ending of this one because it's a very odd ending, I had to say. But I enjoyed it for what it was. So if I had to rate Rape of the Vampire, I'm going to give it a solid 7.5 out of 10. Really interesting early day Jean Rollin film, which I think a lot of people should check out. And if you're a fan of his stuff and you haven't seen this one yet, it's very interesting to see like how he grew as a director from this film. So yeah, Rape of the Vampire, 7.5 out of 10. Really recommend this release. A lot of cool special features, including interviews and the making of, and yeah, a nice little booklet from Tim Lucas, of course, who was a huge Jean Rollin fan. I always keep fucking his name up. I know it's pronounced John, but Gene just sounds, because it looks like Gene, you know what I mean? But it's Jean Rollin. It's not like he called Jean-Claude Van Damme Gene, you know what I mean? But enough of that babbling. So yeah, Rape of the Vampire, 7.5 out of 10. Rest in peace to Jean Rollin. He made some elegant looking atmospheric visual films that aren't for everyone, I will admit, but I enjoy them for what they are. So yeah, that's it for the review, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, I'll be back next week with another one for you guys. Peace out.